Well, thank you. And I also think getting to a ripe old age. So I like for the. I know this is for the readers, but you also, of course, for the authors. I wouldn't let your age put you off writing. I would see that almost as a boon in some way, because anyone who lives into their 8th decade will have experience that others will be glad to know of. As you said earlier, a time when there wasn't the internet or cell phones, we do have a yearning for a simpler time. And people who were born in the 1940s, 1950s, that's when television was just invented. People didn't generally have TVs. How did they entertain themselves? Like, there are these things that people today, I think, would really love to know. And so I would say that once you get to a certain age, it's not your duty to go back and bring things up for others, but it's a joy to be able to do it and to know that you will benefit. Somebody's out there.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have a great author on the podcast, and what I love is this author's from a country that I love, from Canada, and Julie Strong is here. Her book, The Tudor Prophecy, is a new release, and I'm excited to have her here on the podcast. We're going to talk about her book, her journey, and all things around the Tudor Prophecy. Nice to have you here. Welcome, Julie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. I'm so happy to have you here. Can you let everybody know, Julie, where you are in this big world of ours?
Well, I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Now, I went to Halifax years ago, and I stayed there for a few days. I love Nova Scotia. It's a beautiful country. Everyone should go there, and everyone should come visit you, right, Julie?
Absolutely. But let them wait a couple of months until the Alps
okay.
has at least thinned down so this is not 3 feet thick.
Yeah, okay, good. And we'll all come with a copy of your book in our hands so that you can autograph it for us. Right?
Yes.
We'll make the trip and come and see you.
Book
right?
in both hands and one on your head. And don't get your
There
feet.
you go.
People with flexible toes can at least manage one in both foot.
There you go. That's how you sell more books, Julie. That's well done. Well done. I like how you did that. Okay, it's great. So tell us, Julie, is this your first book that you've ever written?
It is, Dave. It's my very first.
Okay. Now, so what was the spark for you as a writer to sit down and say, I'm going to become an author. I'm going to write the Tudor Prophecy. I'm going to create this book. What was it, a person? Something happened for you to go, I got this idea?
I think I was in a difficult place in my life 20 years ago, and I needed something beautiful, and I was very much drawn to the clothes of the Tudor time. When I saw pictures of Anne Boleyn in that beautiful velvet dress she wears with a gorgeous gold brocade, and then when I looked at other dresses with the fur sleeves, I was just drawn to the clothing, and I was drawn to the feel of what it would be like to be wearing fur and velvet, and it was almost, I started with dresses. I don't know if people have seen the Sleeping Beauty movie where the fairy godmothers, they make the dress and then they have a terrible fight about it. One wants it pink, one wants it blue, and it ends up being a terrible, terrible mess. But it was the idea of being able to create something. I didn't have the confidence to create the characters, but once I had the clothes, I knew the characters would come next. And so I modeled the main character a little bit on my own early childhood, which was quite difficult, with losing my own mother in childbirth and my father becoming quite psychotic. And so once I had her, then I had to figure out, she needed friends to help her. And she needed desires, and she needed to know that underneath those desires, there was a love for something else. And that love and destiny can overcome most of the hardships in life. And of course, I needed somebody totally villainous, and I have Henry VIII. And so the next person who writes it can put Donald Trump in his clothes and have a field day, I hope. Because there are narcissistic psychopaths in the world today. And my heroine is able, because she meets the young Queen Elizabeth, and both their mothers, as you probably know, Anne Boleyn is decapitated when Elizabeth is only 2.5. So my heroines can bond. And my heroine Hester can persuade Elizabeth that when she comes to the throne, she will allow freedom of conscience and she won't be chopping off heads like Father Henry VIII it did all the time. So it came from quite a dark place, this starting to write the novel. And for many years, I was looking to make sure, because if I saw that somebody else had written my novel, then I wouldn't have to do it. All along, I was thinking, I don't really want to do this novel. Surely someone else will have. But no, nobody else had written this novel. So it came to me clear and clear that if this novel was going to be written, then I was going to have to do it. And once I got into it, it took me over, and it became a source of great joy and pleasure. And I knew that my heroines, because they're teenagers, they are quite serious. And you know how teenagers are. They're egotistical and they have to have their own way. And they take themselves quite seriously. And so that was fair enough. But I wanted to have minor characters who were older and wiser and could swear like you wouldn't believe. The blasphemy was so much fun writing that. And those characters, the minor characters, they as a foil, as a scabbard to the blade, they brought life to the story too, so that I could focus on my heroine's story, which is quite gruesome and fraught with a dreadful catastrophe. Has a happy ending, but they do have more than their fair share of tribulation. But the minor characters, I could really get into those too and have fun. And I think for anybody starting off writing, like, yes, it is daunting, but somebody told me once, Julie, like, so long as you write, you will eventually get published. And I did write a few articles along the way, and they helped. Because to enter the marathon of writing a novel, it is good to have a few, like, warm-up, like a few 5Ks and before you go for the full thing. So, yeah.
Right. Okay, so as far as writing the book, what was your writing process? Like, how long did it take you to write the book? Were you writing all the time?
No, because I was a family physician for 44 years. And so I did have to take time off to write the book. But I went to a workshop where I was told that if I could write 1,000 words a day, it would only take a year to have it. And, like, of course, there was revisions and revisions, but that's what I did. I wrote 1,000 words freehand a day, and then the next day I would type it up. And so it didn't take long to have the downdraft. And then, of course, there was an awful lot of work for revising it. And also, I would say if as a writer you're going to have two heroines, it's very good to get the timeline of their interaction straight. Because for me, at the end, that was my biggest challenge with my editor, was getting the timelines, because my editor said to me, oh, Julie, you know that a week has gone past with this one heroine and only 48 hours have gone past with the other. You got so if I'd known, I would have put my characters more in sync right from the get-go. That I would give as advice to writers, not to leave that to the end, because then it is a hurdle.
Okay. And then one thing I like to ask authors as well, authors are most often avid readers as well. So is there an author that you really enjoy reading? Is there somebody that you really look up to as a fellow author?
Well, a lot of the facts that I have in my book, I drew on from Alison Weir. She's a British writer, and her research is wonderful. And she writes both straight history and historical fiction. And I also really enjoyed Philippa Gregory's The Other Berlin Girl. I thought that was a wonderful depiction of the time. And so they were my main sources where I went to for the historical. And for sheer inspiration, the Brontes, Charlotte Bronte and Emily and Anne. And also Jane Austen, because I know that this is like 200 years away from us, but she was writing like 200 years after where my historical period is. So some of her language, Jane Austen's language, is still, like we can understand her in the same way that she could have understood them. And so I kind of drew on her voice for my characters. I mean, for the educated ones, the lower ones. They're just the way I, as a peasant, would think. And I mean,
right.
Dave, there's no way out of it. We all would have been peasants back then.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The one thing I love about books is it's kind of like a time capsule. It captures time. It captures a moment.
Yeah.
It captures language. It captures, what was happening in the day, what was common knowledge, what was not known as well. So if you read a book that's dated into the past and written in that context, they don't know about the internet. They don't know about cellular phones. They don't know about all that stuff. So it doesn't change the context, and it takes you back to a different time.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about reading. So from your perspective as an author to a reader, why should we still embrace and fall in love with the written word? Why is it important to love reading, support a fellow authors, have a paper copy book in our hand that we can hold? Why is that so important for readers today to keep reading and keep falling in love with books?
Well, I think that with a book itself, it satisfies so many of our senses. Oh, okay, so we're reading the words, but there's also the tactile element of actually turning a page. And there's the smell of a book. I can sniff around the computer all day, but I'm never going to get that delicious smell of wood. And like of knowing that with a book, it has grown in a forest. And it has the earth and the sky and the rain. There are all the elements that go into a book. And as we hold it in our hands, we're connected with the earth. And what I'm writing in my book is a celebration of the divine feminine. It's a rebellion against the patriarchy. And, okay, I'm getting myself here a little bit twisted up, because if we don't fell down the trees, am I going to be able to say how wonderful it is to hold a book in my hand? But we don't have to clear cut the forest to put up highways. And so I think to have a connection with our senses, with the real book, is very important. And when you asked me about how did I start the process of writing, a lot of it was touch, the feel of fur, of silk, and feeling, just to be able to the sound. You can hear that when you ripple through a book. It's like the wind. I mean, you cannot get that any other way but with actually holding a book, and to be able to run your hand over the cover and almost have an imprint of the design. It's the heart connection, I think, with a book itself.
So, Julie, you're holding your book there for us. For those that are listening, you can't see in the moment, but Julie's holding her book, and there's so much pride I can see in you as you hold this book. You're very proud of what you've created. Take us to the moment, Julie, when your book arrived to you for the first time, and you were able to put your hands on something that took you so long to create, so much effort and love to write, and you finally got to hold your book for the very first time. Take us back to the moment. What does it feel like as an author to hold your book for the first time?
Oh, it's a huge thrill, and it's also quite humbling because it's a team. When I've worked in family practice, like it's one-on-one. There's no thing about being a team. But here, like I had, of course, my publisher, Anne O'Connell, and without her, none of this would happen. And then I had my editor, Marianne Ward, who did such a wonderful job. And I had Rebecca Wilson, who designed this. And I just loved that she made a feminine throne, which the waiting Queen Elizabeth. And I had David Edelstein, the designer. It was such a thrill to work as a team and to produce something of beauty, of completeness. And so, okay, that was the good side. All right, the downside is, have you any idea how much 20 books weigh? I'm sure you do.
Yes.
So, an appointment with my chiropractor. Many appointments with my chiropractor. Because I had no idea.
So a labor of love turned into some back pain.
Absolutely.
I like that. Well, there you go.
But yes, it was an absolute thrill. Thank you, Dave, for asking.
Excellent. And I guess too, Julie, I like to ask this because Anne is like in the presence of us in the room while we're recording. But let's kind of talk a little bit about what it's like to work with somebody like Anne and her team. Like, how important is it for you as an author to find the right team to work with?
I think that's the most important thing of all, because I think it's the difference between making the journey joyful and making it quite desolate. Because I have a friend author who wanted to publish with Anne, and Anne couldn't find the room, and went with another publisher. And it's so important, Dave, to have the right publisher, someone who believes in you and who will help you at every stage of the process. Yes, I'm thrilled and very thankful to Anne. And the other thing is to be part of a family of authors. I mean, because Anne has like other historical authors under her umbrella isn't quite the right word. But so it's not just been a wonderful process of having my own team, getting my own book out, but it's now that I'm part of an author family, all because of Anne and of her publishing company. It is fantastic, Dave. I just can't stress enough how important having the right publisher is, because the right publisher will put you onto the right editor, and will put you onto the right designer, and it's just almost a cascading effect. It's like the dominoes are all lying down and they all stand up straight when you have the right publisher.
There you go. It's amazing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the book too, Julie, because I want people, the readers that are listening, to have a good sense of what the book is about, the kind of the general story arc of what we're going to find in the book. We don't want to give away the story because we want people to buy the book, obviously. But I want to give people a good idea when they go see your book on a store shelf or they see it on a website like your website, what it's going to be for them, because they might buy it for themselves and they might buy it for someone else as well. So any kind of information we can give them about the story of the book, I think would be really helpful.
Okay. Well, the story itself, I would say it's ages 15 to 95. That's my target audience. And it seems to have been surprisingly well received by men. And so, I'm thinking that anyone who's interested in the Reformation, anyone who's interested in herbal medicine, about how the dispossessed, giving them a voice, the lower classes, the insane, how things were for these people back then, 500 years ago. And so I'll give you, and this is the elevator pitch, and
I like the elevator pitch. Yes, it's good.
Right. So the Tudor Prophecy, set in 1541, the time of Henry VIII's troubled Reformation, and the story is about two young women herbalists. One, Hester, who is molested by Henry VIII, but goes on to fall in love with a bard who's meant to prophesy the ascendancy of Elizabeth, Henry's younger daughter. And the second heroine, Hester, she is expelled from her home because her father refuses to swear Henry's oath of supremacy. So she and her mother evicted, and they eke a subsistence from selling herbs, but they are accused of witchcraft. And the story does have a happy ending, and it sets the stage for Elizabeth to become a benevolent ruler, which will happen not in the sequel, but in the sequel to the sequel.
So there are more books to come.
Oh, Dave.
Come on. That's exciting for a reader.
Once you start.
Yeah. Right? It's a slippery slope once you start.
Oh, the dominoes are all falling down now. Yes.
Because I know when readers find an author that they fall in love with and they buy the first book, they're like, oh, I hope there's more coming. I hope that I can anticipate more from this new author that I love. So just hearing that you already have things in the works, I think that's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I am excited.
Excellent. So talk a little bit about your career and all the things you've done in the past. How did that kind of flavor your writing? What kind of things did you bring from who you are and who you served in your community? How did that impact your writing?
As a healer, I knew that my heroine was in great need of healing. I also knew that Elizabeth I was in great need of healing because, as you know, her mother was decapitated, not just for adultery, but she was accused of witchcraft as well. And so you've got the young Lady Elizabeth growing up with this terrible shadow on her. And in order for Elizabeth to get to the throne, to be an all-round pretty good person, totally unlike her father, she's going to need healing. But first, the healer has to be healed. So I brought that with me from medicine. And I also, because I have a small shamanic practice, which is healing with spirit, was able to bring in the bard. Back in Celtic times, the bard would get his inspiration from sleeping on Cadair Idris, the highest mountain in Wales. He would spend the night there, and the mountain, the goddess, she would speak to him and inspire him. And he would tell the songs that she gave him. And so I wanted to bring in the ancient Celtic, how they were close to the spirit, how they were close to nature. and how, of course, Catholicism took away the wells that were sacred to the goddesses and renamed them for the saints. And then when the Reformation came along, getting rid of the saints, and they didn't know what to do. So I have all this in the novel. This the way people, they would go to bed one morning as a good Catholic, and they'd wake up the next as a Protestant. And if they weren't, so it was a time of terrible turbulence. But I wanted to bring in the spiritual element, which endures, the connection with the earth and the connection with the greater spirit. So that's what I brought with from medicine and from shamanism. And because I have a degree in classics, I was able to bring in the Welsh and the Greek and Latin stories that can comfort a child when they're in distress. So I think that's pretty much what I brought.
No, see, I like that all of these different influences combined together become you and become you as an author and become your book, right? All these different influences, knowledge, there's things that you know that's common knowledge for you that's outstanding for me. Like I have no idea because I've never studied it or gone down this path. But to you, it's common. You've done this for so long that it just becomes a part of you. And when you write, all those pieces of you and all these different influences, where you've grown up, where you were born, and everything you've seen comes out through your pen and through your writing. That's what I think makes you unique as an author.
Well, thank you. And I also think getting to a ripe old age. So I like I know this is for the readers, but you also, of course, for the authors. I wouldn't let your age put you off writing. I would see that almost as a boon in some way, because anyone who lives into their 8th decade will have experience that others will be glad to know of. As you said earlier, a time when there wasn't the internet or cell phones, we do have a yearning for a simpler time. And people who were born in the 1940s, 1950s, that's when television was just invented. People didn't generally have TVs. How did they entertain themselves? Like, there are these things that people today, I think, would really love to know. And so I would say that once you get to a certain age, it's not your duty to go back and bring things up for others, but it's a joy to be able to do it and to know that you will benefit. Somebody's out there,
right? And I think back when we look back at some of the times in the past when we didn't have all these other distractions, we're being fed all of this information, but there's not a lot of people creating the information. So I think we're losing the ability to tell stories without having video, without having all these things to support it. Just simply telling a story. We're being told stories, but we as people, we're not creating and telling our own story. So that's why I love authors who can write and share their story from their point of view and help us to fall in love with story. I just hope that readers and fellow authors listening develop the skill of being able to tell a story again without having to without it leaning on visuals and all of that. You're creating a world through your book, and you're bringing us into that world and explaining that world to us through story. I think that's something we need to develop more of as we lean on technology in the future.
Well, thank you. I agree with it. And I get very cross with technology at times, like what, when I'm telling my grandson, who's 7, the story of Hercules, and he'll say, no, that's not the way it is, because he's seen the Disney version. And I'm so mad.
Yeah, there was a story before there was the movie, just so you know, right? Yeah, I love that.
So, like, we need to do battle for our stories, yes, and tell them.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Julie, with that in mind, then for a new author listening to this, thinking, Julie, who's ever going to read my story? Like, who's ever going to care about what I have to say? They feel like there's so many great authors in the world. We have your book. We have many other authors out there in the world. Who is ever going to read my book? Who's going to listen to my story? What would you say to them to encourage them that we need them to keep telling their story?
The first thing, Dave, is you really have to do it for yourself. You have to, the joy that you get from writing your story in some way, in some little way, does have to be enough. And it has to be enough to spur you to the end. And then at the same time as doing it because it's an act of creation, because it's an act of joy, because you actually have to get this out. You have, okay, I am presuming that you haven't given birth, but I have to be very, very careful these days.
I've been in the room,
Okay,
but no,
yes.
I did not do the actual part. Yes.
Thank you, Dave, for putting me on safe ground there. But it is almost something like a conception, a gestation, and then it comes out and it's yours, and you do it for you. But you know at the back of your mind, it's just at the back of your mind, but you do know that this story is going to answer a question for somebody else. It's something that someone has been asking for a long time, and nobody has been able to answer it until you, the author, have produced this work. And that reader will say, aha, and now I see, now I understand. And you will have given this gift to them. And you will have put in an awful lot of work to do this. But you do know at the back of your mind that there's somebody that your book is going to make all the difference in the world to. So you have to keep going. And with any luck, that person will tell somebody else and somebody else, and it will blossom. There's no guarantee. It's really the Roman goddess Fortuna who has that in her hand. As the author, the publisher, marketing, you do what you can to spread the word, to get the book into people's hands to read it. But Fortuna is a huge presence that you need to call upon to make your book, my book, widely known. And at the same time, knowing that there will be those people that the book, it makes a real difference in their lives too. And so that's why any author who's doing this, I would encourage them to carry on. One thing I would say though, when you do write your book, make sure that it fits through the letterbox. Do not be
There's a good test.
460 words. Be modest. Go for something like 250. It'll save you a lot of grief because you'll be able to go with the general postage rate and you will, yes.
Very practical advice for everyone listening. Yes.
My next books will definitely not be 460 words. I would say as an author, go, half of that would be just fine. I couldn't do that with mine because the stories, they were enmeshed, and other than just chop it down the center, there was nothing for it. But I would say, please carry on. And Dave, if to the reader out there, like if it has to be 1,000 words, then it does have to be, and screw Canada Post. You just have to suck it up. There you go.
The one thing I love too, Julie, about the fact that you've written your book is a book is legacy.
Yeah.
A book lives on.
Yes.
Right? It's something that just continues. As a parent, I remember somebody saying to me when we had our firstborn, somebody walked up, put their hand around my shoulder as a new dad, and said, get used to the idea that your heart now beats outside of your body. You have a child. And I'm like, oh, like he's going to do things, go places that you're never going to go. So a piece of you now lives outside of you. And as an author, I think it's similar, that you write a book and you put it out in the world. A piece of you is now out there. I'm going to take a picture of your book here at Niagara Falls. You're not in the picture, but your book is here. So a piece of you is now traveling the world in people's hands. There's people listening to this today that are going to go buy your book just by hearing you on the show. A piece of you is traveling around the world, creating legacy for you. I think as an author, that's really important to identify that your words are going to live on into the future.
It is wonderful. I mean, it's humbling and it's wonderful at the same time. A friend did send me a piece from a copy of The Guardian a few weeks ago, saying that books, as long as there are bookshelves, there's likely to be books on them, and that, as you say, it's a legacy, and that's a lovely way of putting it. That there's a part of my heart that beats ways outside my body now, and it's there, and it's in people's hands, and there is that hope that as you hope that the world will treat your biological children well, there's that hope that the world will treat my book well. I just read something by one of my favorite authors. Her name's Mrs. Gaskell. She was from Manchester, and she wrote in the 19th century, and she wrote a book that was scandalous at the time about an unmarried mother. And although it was a beautiful book, she got terrible reviews. And she said, I feel like Saint Sebastian, and people are shooting arrows at me. And so I do hope that if I'm going to be Saint Sebastian and people shoot arrows at me, at least they'll have rubber tips. or better still, they won't be shooting arrows at all. They'll be just untruthfully thrilled. But I do feel that I've written something that is unusual and quite startling, and I'm hoping, thank you, David, it will have a place in people's hearts and minds.
Excellent. Julie, I'm looking at your website while we're chatting, julieKstrong.ca. We'll have a link in the show notes for everyone to go and check out your beautiful website. I see a picture of you at age 2 on your website. Come on, look at you. This is beautiful. And of course, you're reading in the picture as well. That's expected. So for people coming to your website, Julie, we can follow your journey as an author. We can read more about your past and where you've grown up and all the beautiful places you've lived. But also there'll be information in the future when people listen to this later about new books and new opportunities coming for you as well. So we can go to your website, and that's where we'll get all that information.
Absolutely.
Excellent. We'll have links to that in the show notes as well. Julie, my podcast is called Living the Next Chapter. So I like to ask this question to my guest. You kind of gave us already some hints about what's coming down the road, but I'm interested for you, either as an author or as a person, how are you living your next chapter?
Okay. Well, it's been because I retired from family practice in December, quite recently. After doing it for 44 years, there is a bit of this disconnect, and it's wonderful to have this book, and to have a shamanic practice, and I do play the viola, a musical in a quartet, and so this is what my next chapter is looking like. But I guess really part of my next chapter is not to be spending the middle of February in Nova Scotia.
Australia is looking very nice right about this time.
It is. And I do have grandchildren, so of course, and I love being able to tell them stories. And
amazing.
So, thank you. This present chapter, I feel I've been very blessed to be here now.
Oh, and thank you for sharing your story with us too, Julie. I love celebrating authors. I love celebrating Canadian authors as well. That's really exciting. And to get more people into your world after hearing this conversation. I'm just so happy you had time to come on the podcast.
Oh, this has been wonderful, Dave. Thank you. It's been a truly moving experience, and I thank you very much.
Excellent, everyone. All the information for Julie, her book, and all the future projects always available, julieKstrong.ca. It's .ca because we're in Canada, yeah. But make sure you go and check out Julie. And when you buy a book, I'm asking you as a reader to leave a very detailed and loving review of the book, so more people will see your review, your kind words about how Julie's book has impacted you and why you love it so much, so that Julie will sell even more books. And as you listen to this, you're thinking about somebody in your life who would also love a copy of this book. So when you buy one, buy two, and send one to them as well. And make sure it fits inside the letter carrier hole there in their house. Make sure that they can get a copy of this. But think about someone in your life that you could send a copy of this book as well. Let's help Julie not sell one book, but more and more and more. Julie, thank you again so much for being on Living the Next Chapter.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dave.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun. Well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.